Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. If Brooklyn were a city, it'd be the third largest in the country, and Eric Adams would be its mayor. But it's a borough, one of the 5 that make up New York City, and he's its president, and he's my guest today. Hello.
How are you? It is
fine.
so good seeing you.
Thank you. Same with me. So Brooklyn may not be the largest territory, but it is the densest, the most populous, right?
Yes, it is 2.6 million people. And I always like to say 47% of the residents speak a language other than English at home. So it is the United Nations of New York City.
It certainly is. It's all different. And it's especially known for its neighborhoods, isn't it? I mean, it's all...
Yes, it is. When you think about it, we have one of the largest Asian population in Sunset Park, one of the largest Mexican population, one of the largest Caribbean diaspora in central Brooklyn, the Crown Heights, Flatbush area, largest Russian-speaking population in Brighton Beach, Southern African population in Bedford-Stuyvesant, new young people coming into Greenpoint and Williamsburg. It is just a thriving community.
I remember driving through, my husband used to love it, drive down Bedford Avenue. And you'd go through all these different neighborhoods.
Yes,
right?
one of the longest streets in probably the city. I'm not sure of the city, but I know it's one of the longest in the borough. And as you drive down Bedford Avenue, which starts in by the waterfront out in the Coney Island, Brighton Beach area, and goes all the way into the Williamsburg area near the Williamsburg Bridge.
So you're going through the Hasidic neighborhood and then the...
There you go. That's right.
You're a native Brooklynite.
Yes, born in Brooklyn, 1960. Moved to Queens for a period of time. Mother bought a small house in Queens, and I returned to Brooklyn when I was 18 years old and never left. I love the borough, love the people, love the energy, and the history.
What was the difference between Brooklyn and Queens? Is that a silly thing?
Queens, I guess the best way to define it, particularly in the area I grew up in, St. Albans, South Jamaica area, it was, many small homes, a middle-class community.
Suburban.
Yes, real suburban. In Brooklyn, tenement buildings, apartment buildings, more densely populated than Queens.
And then you were a police officer.
Yes, 1984.
Did you always want to do that?
I always wanted to do something to help people. I enjoyed, helping people. I used to, the people who lived on my block, I was the kid that rang the bell and asked, did you need anything from the store? And I used to run errands, mow the lawn, shovel the snow, so I always enjoyed that. And policing was a natural transition. Yeah. And it was an amazing career. And what it has taught me about people and interacting with people, you see the city from the front row when you are a police officer.
That's so interesting.
Yes.
I always thought city government is so great because you walk into City Hall, it's right in the middle of the people it governs. And
yes.
You feel the same way, I'm sure, in Borough Hall. But so the police are even more.
Oh, without a doubt. It actually framed my outlook of going into government. When you think about it, Ronnie, I cannot tell you, some of the joyful occasions that I experienced as a police officer, but also some of the most horrendous occasions, to see what man will do to man, his fellow man, and see the abuse of children, domestic violence, just some really horrific acts. And if you don't really find a way to sort of, find a peaceful place inside you, it could really eat you up. And I saw that at the end of my career. I did 22 years and I retired as a captain. And at the end of my career, I was just broken in so many places emotionally. And it wasn't until I really embraced meditation and just really start holistically understanding that, your body needs to heal not only physically from something damaging, but also emotionally and spiritually.
So interesting.
And so many people don't realize that. We're in such a fast-paced, only physical society and universe that we sort of ignore how much our body must heal. And if we don't start that healing process, we're going to walk around with broken people. And there are many people who are broken inside and don't know why.
Right. And you also became a real advocate.
Yes, yes. In my policing career, you know, as a young man, when I was arrested as a young man at 15 years old, the police officers that arrested us abused us really in a very horrific fashion. And it just, my brother who was arrested with me just turned out to be just anti-police. And it's interesting how two people can go through an experience. One sees one way and I saw another. And, you know, in 1980, 81, 82, a name that may be familiar with you, Reverend Herbert Daughtry.
Oh, right.
Yes, from the House of the Lord Church. He assembled 13 of us, young men, and it was right after the Randolph Evans killing. Randolph Evans was shot and killed in Brooklyn by a housing police officer who shot him for no apparent reason. And Reverend Daughtry said he wanted us to go into law enforcement. Some went into Department of Corrections, some of us went into the housing police, transit police, NY Police Department, New York City Police Department. He said he wanted us to go inside and young black men need to start standing up.
Isn't that interesting?
Right, and I was a computer geek, you know, that's all you know, this was like new to me, but I had so much respect for him and the men who assembled us that we went in, you know, and we started an organization called 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, and really challenge the police department, you know, the stop and frisk, the abuse. This was during the Mullins Commission and the hearing under David Dinkins. You know, so this was a very important time in policing.
I remember it from all the press conferences and demonstrations with Norman Siegel and all that.
Yes. Norman was so instrumental. You know, he played such a vital role. Just sort of inexperienced in navigating the legal process. And it was so important to find an attorney who...
he felt it in his heart,
Oh, he did. And coming from the experience of the 60s, because remember, Norman was there with...
down in the South, too.
Right. The South with Muhammad Ali and the civil rights employees. There's a famous picture that I love of him where he's standing on the steps of one of the judges. He went to their home to get them to sign an order, one of the Supreme Court justices.
Oh, my God. And I worked with him on the Civilian Review Board legislation during the Dinkins administration. So he was all over the place. He has an enormous energy quotient or something.
Yes, he does.
So what is Borough President? It's similar to the police work in a way. It allows you to see the everyday problems that the residents have.
You know, and sometimes people are dismissive of the Borough President's office. You know, after the Board of Estimates change,
the charter.
The charter revision, everyone's basically said, well, it's just a ceremonial role. And I don't think they really understand the impact of the office. And, you know, the office doesn't make a person. The person makes the office. And so we may have lost the power under, you know, the Board of Estimates.
Money.
Right.
Basically.
But, you know, as a person in government, you know, no matter how much power an elected has, you always want more power.
I know. It's never enough, right?
Right.
And when you get someplace, you say, this is what that's all about, right? So you have to always move, right?
Right. So we're using the office and all the power of the office and my relationship with the mayor to really push just some fantastic changes, and you see the impact of what we're doing in Brooklyn and a lot of the citywide services.
And the problems that you see in Brooklyn are similar to problems all over.
Yes. Brooklyn is a microcosm of what is happening in communities throughout the entire city. We have affluent areas of the borough, and we have areas that are economically challenging. And so when you look at and put Brooklyn under a microscope, you have a clear reflection of what is happening in the most affluent parts of the city and those who are going through economic challenges.
And you certainly can see the effect of this gentrification that we call it, right?
Yes.
Of suddenly opening up a neighborhood and it becoming very popular and it dislocating people here to here to here.
Especially in Brooklyn. Especially in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is probably ground zero for gentrification. And what we must do is find ways to ensure that long-standing tenants are not harassed and displaced. At the same time, having a welcome mat in all of the languages to say that Brooklyn has always been a home of diversity, and that is our strength, our diversity.
So you have to protect it all the time.
Yes, you do.
Do you happen to know the percentage now of multiple dwellings? Are they increasing?
Yes, yes, they are. You know, I don't have the exact numbers, but trust me when I tell you, our skyline is changing every day. We have a massive influx of new arrivals, new apartments. We get a lot of business development downtown, and you're going to see some changes in the East New York section of Brooklyn, by the Junction and other parts of Brooklyn. But we're trying to move the governmental services into central Brooklyn and then away from the downtown area to free up some of the space. Because this will help revitalize communities by doing so.
Right. And what, is it about 50% of the people who live in Brooklyn commute to Manhattan and other places to work, but 50% live in?
Exactly. You have a substantial around 40 to 50% commute into Manhattan, and that puts an awesome strain on our public transportation system. You know, as we look and have the conversation around congestion pricing and have conversations around how we're going to continue to invest in our bus services. And so what we would like to do is do things like the Freedom Ticket, which will allow people to use the Long Island Railroad as well as the transit system to commute to and from.
For the same price.
Exactly, for the same price, and free connections. So we have to become really creative. You know, the numbers in the population is increasing substantially in the borough. And so it's imperative that we find creative ways of moving people around. Yes, yes.
You know, there are two things that you've done that fascinate me. One is your study and your whole policy of the education pipeline.
Yes, yes.
I mean, talk about it, how the gifted and talented, how the young children in pre-K, and even before, I think, in daycare, childcare, are not nurtured along to become, you know, equivalent facilities as they go on.
And there's two aspects of that. One is the Gifted and Talented program. We have examined the Gifted and Talented program, and clearly when you look at some of the numbers, such as Brooklyn Tech, during the 70s and early 80s, Brooklyn Tech used to have 30 to 40% minority students there. Now you look at the dismal numbers now, clearly there is a problem. And when we sat down and held hearings with Borough President Diaz and I, and we looked at why were we doing so well and now we're doing so poorly, we were able to see that the support system in place, those young people who attended places like Brooklyn Tech, Stuyvesant, and other Bronx Science, they were receiving support systems from the time they were in their earlier grades that allowed them to go into the Gifted and Talented program. Those systems are not there, and there are unbelievable obstacles that are in the way of a parent to ensure that their child receives the necessary support for a Gifted and Talented program.
I don't know how you go and look at it. You know, I mean, all over the city, I think we have problems with diversifying the school population and integrating it, right? We even had it on the west side. We had a very bitter thing of changing the schools and redistricting and everything. So how do we do that?
You know, I think nothing brings out the passion of even a reasonable parent than when it comes down to the quality of education for their children. And it brings about so much tension. We have to shift the conversation of diversity does not erode the quality of education and actually improve the quality of education, because our children who may be academically smart, but if you're not emotionally intelligent in a universe that they have to be a part of, then you're not going to be successful in business. If there's a discomfort of being in a room with different ethnic groups in different environments, you're missing it. And a perfect example is, Ronnie, if you go to what we have in our borough, my borough called New Lab, where we have all of the state-of-the-art, it's a space where different businesses share the space. If you walk to those different businesses and see the new creative science and what they're doing, you see the diversity, because we have to bring the ideas from different communities and different cultures to solve global problems. You can't solve global problems if everyone in the room looks like you, talk like you, walk like you, and learn like you.
You know, I remember when my kids were little, how we worried about that and the testing. If you wanted your child to go to Hunter grade school, you had to have them tested. They had to be in a certain percentile. But we don't do that for all over, do we?
No, we don't. And we don't give parents access to the proper information. When my son or daughter or parents, child registers for school, we should give them the pre-K information. They should we should give them the gifted and talented information. They should opt out of the program and not be denied access to the test. And think about it. If you're a parent and you speak English as a second language, you don't know how to navigate the challenges of...
No, you can't.
It's too challenging.
Even if you speak English.
Right, and we need to support. And then the other aspect of that is the pipeline education that we're doing in Brooklyn. Partnering with Dr. Rudy Crew, the former chancellor, we have found that there was a disconnect between our high schools, our middle schools, and our elementary schools, and even our pre-Ks and 3Ks. Our goal is to create a pipeline and create a school environment in the community. My elementary school teacher should know the principal of the middle school, and the middle school should know the principal of the high school. And if we're teaching tech training, urban agriculture, and other things, there should be a complementary training that takes place as the child moves to the next level. Not he learns one skill in elementary school, no longer has a middle school that supports that skill, and by the time he gets to high school, it's abandoned altogether. Our goal is to create a pipeline. We've done it in South Brooklyn. We did it in Central Brooklyn with Dr. Crew, and it has just proven great results.
So, you know, the other part of it is, if you look at a prison population, which always interests me, the learning disabilities, I'm sure, that people have who are there should have been found out much earlier.
Well said.
So how do we test for that?
Even more than that, something that I learned that is remarkable. Close to 50% of the prison population on Rikers Island, they are dyslexic or have some form of learning disability. That number is astonishing.
Right.
The children get into school, they're not supported, they don't receive the city services that they deserve. They get disenchanted and they find a life of crime. Last night I had a conversation with a mother that broke my heart. It was around 11 o'clock at night. She called, called me because I saw her on the street, and I gave her my number and told her to reach out to me. She has a daughter that's autistic. She's a single parent, and she stated that every other day the school calls her because they say, my daughter's having a bad day, so I have to come get her. I have to leave my job, I have to come get her. Not giving families who have children with special needs the services they deserve is wrong, and we're moving in the wrong direction, and we have to do a better job in doing so. I know how challenging it was and continues to be raising my son. I could only imagine a family with a child with special needs and the challenges. They should not have to go through this alone.
Right, and at the same time struggling to support the family.
Yes, yes.
It's just crazy.
Yes.
It really makes no sense. The other thing I'd like, so you're really on to this. Now, what do you do? How do you do this? You go to the mayor? You go to your city council members? You go to the Board of Ed? Department of Ed?
It's a combination. It's good old-fashioned mobilizing parents on the ground. We do something that's called PTA Link, where we bring in parents all over the city and partner with each other on empowering their PTAs, because nothing is more strong and vociferous than a group of parents who's protecting the right of their students. We'll lend parents from charter school to public school to private school all see that we have the same goal, and we want to tear down that wall. Yes, tear down that wall that divides us.
I mean, it's just so sad to see it because it's uneven from the beginning.
Yes, it is.
You know what's going to happen.
Yes, it is.
So the other thing is obesity.
Yes.
You have a particular interest and energy directed to this. Tell us about it.
Well, it's healthcare on a whole. In April of last year, and even if I go even further back, in January, I remember watching Mother, and I wrote this in one of my newsletters, watching Mother inject herself with insulin. And my mother was diabetic, and I remember Ronnie saying that
She was young.
Yes, yes. And I say, Mommy, I just wanted to do something for her. She was injecting herself for years, but and she never got used to it. And I saw that in her face. And I remember just saying, I want to do something for my mother and this diabetes. And months later, I always say, be careful what you ask for. I learned that I was diabetic. And my A1C was far more dangerous than my mother. It was in the high teens. I lost my sight in my left eye for the most part. I was losing my sight in my right eye. I had permanent nerve damage in my hands and feet. Many people who are diabetic, they know about it. I had an ulcer in my stomach. I looked fine, but my body was breaking down. And when I went in for a colonoscopy to check my stomach and my colon, the doctor said, my colon was fine. He identified the ulcer, but he said, Eric, your diabetes is out of control. And I didn't even realize
know you had it?
Nope. Like so many people don't. Millions of Americans are not aware they're diabetic or pre-diabetic. And so I went to 5 doctors, Ronnie, and they all told me, they gave me medicine for my ulcer, medicine for my diabetes, medicine for my eyes, medicine for my cholesterol, medicine for my high blood pressure. They gave me I was a walking pharmaceutical company. And so all of them told me I was going to be on medicine for the rest of my life. They said, this is it. Your sight is not going to recover. The nerve damage is not going to recover. And I just didn't believe that. And I just started to look into the body's ability to heal itself. I came across an amazing doctor in Ohio, Dr. Esserton, the same doctor that treated Bill Clinton, and also discovered this book called How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. Dr. Esserton told me to fly down to see him. And while flying down, I read Dr. Greger's book, and I was just blown away. And Dr. Esserton told me, Eric, if you change your lifestyle, you'll reverse your diabetes. And Ronnie, 3 weeks after changing my diet, my sight came back. 3 months after, all the nerve damage left in my hands and feet, the ulcer is gone, my blood pressure normalized, my cholesterol, the bad cholesterol went all the way down to a 57. Unbelievable what happened. I dropped 35 pounds without even no effort at all. And so it just changed my life. My
Stop taking the medicine?
I took medicine for the first week just to sort of normalize it, but I no longer needed the medicine. My A1C normalized, to a non-diabetic level. My mother went on a program with me 2 months ago, a little over 2 months ago. She now is off insulin also. It's about healing. And my goal is to show families that you don't have to live a life of medicine and prescription to treat symptoms, but to reverse diseases. Because a chronic disease, it hijacks your life.
It's debilitating.
You're no longer yourself. And even when you're present, you're not present. And I really want to spend my life showing Brooklynites, New Yorkers, and Americans that our diet is killing us. We're not dying from disease because we have bad DNA. We have bad dinners.
And you've become a great chef.
Yes, I have. 90% of what I cook, I never cooked before. I used to, my only meal was toast, and I would burn that half the time. But now I enjoy, just the creativity of cooking. Using different spices, great spices that are healthy for you. Many people don't realize some of the spices they put on their food. Those spices have really healing powers. Amla, a East Indian spice that I use a lot, turmeric, and all other, certain spices. It's just amazing when you start to really explore the taste of food and not limit yourself by the American diet.
So you should take Brooklyn into the business. I mean, you should train people. First of all, you should grow the stuff, and then you should train people to get them ready and freeze them and sell them. Give them away.
We're doing some amazing stuff around that. Throughout the year, my 4 years in office, We put close to $100 million in the school system, and a lot of that has gone to how do we grow, how do we teach children how to go from soil to plate. And we're looking to create a greenhouse out in Brooklyn, out in the Marlboro project section of Brooklyn, where children can learn how to grow food,
Right.
how to serve the community. We're doing some great creativity around growing food in the classroom that could be given to people in the NYPD developments and show them the power of healthy food.
Well, it's incredibly exciting. We've come to the end of our program, and the end result is that I think I should move to Brooklyn. But they're certainly lucky to have you there.
Yes,
And
yes.
everything that you're doing should be done all over the city.
We're excited, and again, it is great seeing you, and thank you for your service
Oh, please.
and your love for
and
the city.
for you. My goodness. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eric Adams. We at CUNY TV always like to hear from our viewers. So if you have any subjects you'd like to explore or people you'd like to hear, please let us know. Write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or go to our website, cuny.tv, and click on Contact Us. We look forward to hearing from you.